23-24, 19 billion.
14 billion coming from aeronautical, which is landing, parking, and air passenger space charges, and the rest of the 5 billion coming from non-aeronautical, which is car park, duty-free, advertising, cargo, and general retail in that financial year, 2023. 18, Chair.
Yes, we are almost there. About 3 more questions. 18, clarify whether other airports and airstrips in the country are part of the privately initiated proposal.
Honorable Chair, the Adani PIP is only confined to JKIA.
Within JKIA, the proposed concession is further confined to a dedicated area of aeronautical and commercial development as described in number 8 above.
Number 19, clarify whether public participation was carried out, and if not, at what stage it will be undertaken.
Within the Act, Chair, honorable members, public participation happens after the feasibility stage. Once one of the documents which you submit to PPP committee is a stakeholder engagement plan. We have therefore commenced public participation, including engagement with Kenya Airport Authority senior management, which we met on one Monday morning, the whole morning. KAA section heads, we've met over 500 members of staff in a town hall meeting where they demanded the documents that they agitated, and one of the documents that was missing, and which we gave them, and that is why we were able to call the strike within 1 day. Airline operators, we have done a stakeholder engagement with the airline operators under the umbrella Kenya Association of Airline Operators. We've done the stakeholder engagement with the ground handlers, retailers, and concessionaires within the airport, KCAA, that is Kenya Civil Aviation, and the Kenya Airways. We are currently considering these feedback, comments, and proposal, any memorandum that may have been submitted, with a view to answering and doing a second round to make sure we have addressed the issues raised. And we shall resume the next engagement with the media, which is a way of really reaching out to all the Kenyans. Honorable Chair, allow me at this stage to conclude. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the members for this committee for inviting me to shed light on the matter of concessioning of JKIA. As I mentioned earlier, already the matter is before the court, and therefore the government will use the court process to also ensure that all the relevant information is made available to the court and all the other stakeholders to facilitate clarity and understanding on the development of this major national infrastructure. I wish also to remind us of the great benefits, Chair, that we will basically draw by developing this asset. You know, Kenya is a premium anchor state, being geoposition. With respect to Mombasa Port, the national, then and improve employment, improve livelihoods, Chair, is something that.
Now we are going to turn to the members present to remarks on your submission. But before I give any senator to do so, we are here because of question 19, or the reason why the country is agitating to know. We're here because of question 19, because the public was not carried along within this process. There was miscommunication, and I believe, as you said yesterday, Bwana CS, this committee is giving you a chance to talk to Kenyans And when you talk to Kenyans, they'll be able to understand where we are at. We're going to get their input because, you know, being a broad-based government, we have to take into account every member of this great nation. But a quick one. The question was talking about public participation, but you talked about stakeholders. You know, there's a difference between the two. But before you answer that, I want you to have that at the back of your mind. So members, I want to open the floor. If you would want to engage the CS on that elaborate response that he has given us, plus the document that you are given a few minutes to scrutinize so that we hear. Because CS, the problem might not be the deal, but the wheeler dealers. So that's why we're here, and the floor is open. Yes, Senator, let's start with a friend of the committee, Senator Ledama.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for giving me an opportunity to seek some clarification. Bwana CS, welcome to this committee. As I stated earlier, I'm a friend of this committee, but also the minority whip. I have a series of questions which I would like you to answer. The first basic and straightforward question is, why Adani? Why not the Kenyan government? Bwana CS, in your documents that you've submitted, you've indicated that JKIA is worth 1.1 trillion shillings. And as it appears, even based on your submissions, we are willing to put an investment which is worth 1.1 trillion shillings to risk for 230 billion Kenya shillings. In your submission, Bwana CS, someone would conclude that the deal is done, because you've indicated clearly that there is a team currently in India carrying out due diligence. In your submissions, you've also indicated very clearly that you're negotiating for a CEO to be a Kenyan. But you contradict yourself in your submissions when you are asked to provide a profile and the shareholders of Adani, and you say that we've only carried out a desktop due diligence. Who then would you be negotiating with if, for once, you have sent a team to India, but in your response you say you do not provide this committee with information on who the shareholders are? I would expect that of the runway, if indeed this was not an insider dealing brought about or orchestrated by a cabal in this country, how would Adani, a conglomerate based in India, get specific details on how or what ails our infrastructure? That is issue number one, Bwana CS. Number two, because I want to exhaust a series of my questions before we allow anyone else to answer. And Mr. Chairman, I would hope that my questions will be answered. I've noted that the head of terms contract has been submitted by Adani. They are the ones, I think they are the ones who have drafted it. Yes. Honestly, Bwana CS, we have a big asset here. If Adani was really the company that it is, would we allow them to submit and say that part of the model of financing this deal will be one, debt? They will go out there and borrow money to be able to come and build this infrastructure. Number two, internal accruals is really the bare minimum. Debt capital market structure is a cabal which is led by some people who are not named in this country because you could not even give us a shareholding. And a group of people who are out there, and if you just take a few minutes, Bwana CS, because due diligence is very important. The first thing that they will come out is you'll be told Adani mental degradation in how their practices. So why on earth when it comes to the issue of investments in our property? Why did you not, if it is indeed, and I think I've opined this before. I know Kenya needs a second airport. Kilometers away, tell them you have the 260 billion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll stop there. And I hope that you can answer before any other senator asks questions.
Yeah,
Please.
Thank you. I think we are going to go that way, whereby you exhaust your questions and we give you not so many minutes, about 3 or 4. You ask your questions, then the CS will answer those questions. Bwana CS.
Thank you, Chair. Senator Ledama, through the Chair, why Adani? Like we did indicate, with PPP Act, it basically seeks to help economy on mega projects where the government may not be able to develop. Like, because Senator Chirchir is sitting here, if we were to take the grid to the northern part of Kenya today, and because the government don't have money to build the network in the next 1, 2, 3 years, what we could do is to interest private capital through PPP Act, through PPP investment, to build the network on a return on equity, reasonable return on equity, and therefore be able to open that northern part of Kenya. Alternatively, we wait for 10, 15, 20 years to open that part of the country. So it's a way of procuring private investors, interesting private investors. The PPP Act seeks to really attract private capital instead of, so that we develop off-government balance sheet. And then so the PPP Act seeks, there's so much of insider. You volunteer a lot of information because you are suiting, it is us who want an airport, it is us who want to open another part of Kenya. So you give a lot of information to interest private capital to come in and build it on their balance sheet, not on government balance sheet. So yes, you'll see a lot of inside information being given because you are marketing the country for investors to help us to open the country. We do quite a lot in oil exploration because as a country we are not able to prospect for oil. We block the country, we go marketing, come, we'll give you this concession, we'll help you to do this so that we can leverage on early resource to support the economy from being just an agricultural economy to being a diverse economy. So yes, Senator Ledama, there's a lot of insider information when you are employing the PPP because you are attracting somebody to bring his capital, not look so much at the country risk. Today we are at B-. Investors are bound to be saying, why Kenya? There are so many challenges. So you're marketing yourself, and so you provide information, you paint your country to what we truly are, not what people say we are on the internet and so on and so forth, because we want to attract that kind of capital. When you're doing an investment of 1.8 billion in a country, Honorable Chair, and it is private capital, there is the risk. Why do I have to take my 1.8 billion to Kenya? Is it a safe destination? Is this country safe for the next 30 years? Can I get back my investment? And so you even go as far as issuing a letter of support. We do a lot in energy. I think for every generation, because it's expensive, we issue letters of support and so on and so forth. So, Chair, it's true, Senator Ledama, there's a lot of inside information. It is necessary to attract investors, to show them and paint the correct picture. It is us who need an airport. And otherwise, if we are able to develop on our balance sheet, and I'm now going to the first question of the asset of 1.1 trillion, you'll realize I spent a bit of time on that table on page 8 because I'd anticipated that and I asked the same question. Why are we having an asset? If you talk about return on an asset of 1.1 trillion and you're basically having an investment, are we giving out the whole asset? And you'll note that we are only giving them a hived piece of land to build the airport, and even the 30 acres of land for the city side development is purely outside the concession agreement. Land on that asset of 1.1 trillion is valued at 937 billion. So you're just talking about a small investment around the airport, the old airport that needs to... I just flew in from China, and being the Minister for Road and Transport, I looked at the runway, I looked at the taxiway, and I said, it cannot be that this is our airport. We seriously needed to have done that work 10, 15 years ago. If the balance sheet, the government fiscal space was adequately able to support that kind of investment, Chair, we should really... So, Chair, the straight answer is the only asset, JKIA is only getting a small acreage to develop the airport and not the big asset that is valued at 937 billion. How many acres are they?
11,000.
11,000 acres out of?
The total land in JKIA.
No, I'm talking about what is going to Adani to develop the new airport.
It will be based on the market of development.
But it's a small. They are not. They are just taking. We can give a detail. So, Chair,
point of order, Chair. If you would allow, I would like the CS to actually say what he's saying. He's not saying what he's saying. How much land are we giving Adani either in concession or outside concession?
Thank you, Chair. Outside concession for the city side, 30 acres has been agreed on lease commercial terms. For the airport concessioning, because I'm here with the CEO, I will answer that question. Henry Ogoye, give me the straight answer. We need to give the acreage. Just do a bit of some homework. Or do you have the answer?
Yes, thank you, Honorable CS. The thing is that as at now, we cannot tell how much it will be because they have to come up with the design for the second runway, the area where the new terminal building will occupy, then and even the necessary, the accessories. Out of that, we will now map the area which Adani will be responsible for out of the land which JKIA is occupying, but not everything. Back to you, Chief.
Thank you, Henry. Let me pick it, Chair, from there. You'll note that I did indicate that one of the critical documents to be able to reach commercial or final investment decision is the master plan. If we really put the acreage before the master plan, we'll be basically saying squeeze in or we are giving you too much land. So we need to see the master plan to be able to say, is it 200 acres, is it 400 acres, is it 500 acres? But certainly the big asset value for JKIA is the land, and I don't think they are taking 5% of the land once we see the master plan. So allow us, Chair, because we are at that stage, to be able to answer and see what is the value of the asset in land that we are giving out and be able to more articulately answer that question on, is this a reasonable return on asset when we give them too much value for an investment of 2 billion? Chair, the final part of this question is to the head of terms. Chair, we have retained a transaction advisor called Sequoia Button and Box. Sequoia Button and Box, Chair, is a company, a very reputable transaction advisor. They have done many airports. I'd like us to Google, that's why I repeated the name twice. They are working with a local legal firm called Ashitiva Lawyers to support us to run the transaction. Those are retained by Kenya Airports Authority, and working with the National Treasury, the Directorate of PPP. It's important, Chair, to appreciate the fact that the head of terms was not done by Adani. When you Google who are these Sequoia Button and Box, and when I did that homework, I found that they have done most of the world-leading airports. And I think reputational risk is something of paramount to a great transaction advisor in terms of ensuring that they don't just do a small transaction advice in Kenya and run down their reputation because of... So yes, I thought it's just important to mention that we've retained Sequoia Button Box, working with, it's a global service law firm with very sound counsel in airports, and therefore we have good advisory service. And I want to basically and categorically indicate that the head of terms was a very well negotiated document between the lawyers of Adani and our transaction advisor, and of course the PPP Secretariat at the National Treasury. I don't know whether I have anything else I need to talk to.
Yeah. Senator Ledama had asked, why not build a new airport?
Important, and the shareholding. The shareholding, Chair, cannot be left and it must be disclosed. Question together first, Chair, with the issue of debt equity. Senator Ledama, through the Chair, the debt equity when you are doing huge infrastructure investment, as a student of financial accounts or investment, the debt is normally cheap. And what happens is you need to be able to put in your equity to draw debt. Debt can be a mixture of crowd-sourced funds from various banks and so on and so forth. For you to get 70% debt, which will be serviced over a period of 20 to 25 years, the due diligence will really be so thorough, to the extent that you cannot take risk of lending $1.2, $1.3 billion if they were hanky-panky, because you could be walking in to lose your money. This is why, as a government will issue letter of support, a due diligence will be done by the banks. When we talk about reaching financial close in 6 months, 9 months, it may not even happen in 1 year. So we should be asking us, why don't you give us an airport in 1 year? Why are you dealing with documents for the next 9 months? the banks will do, the lenders will do a thorough due diligence to give us their money. And it's important to note that the share or ratio of debt equity is important because debt normally is cheap. You can borrow US dollar denominated loan at today 8, 9, 10%. But when you put in equity, 30%, equity is expensive. If you do investment in the market today, you can get up to 16, 17, 18%. So if we were to ask somebody to bring their money at 18%, there will be a rush to invest because we are guaranteeing a return on investment for 30 years. And then so the term sheet would ordinarily for big infrastructure project define not more than 30%. In fact, in energy, we do 25%. We do 25% debt, 75%, 25% equity, 75% debt, because debt is cheap. I thought it is important to, it's a principle of investment in economics to be able to do that. But more importantly, let's talk to the, so it's very important. A due diligence will be done and we'll disclose that. But more importantly, the lenders will do a thorough due diligence to be able to commit their debt, which will sit with us for a long time, and which if they don't do their due diligence and they lose the money, it's a case of why Kenya. They've got many other good blue chip investment where they can put that money. As regarding why not build an airport in Konsa, in a feasibility study, and I don't have a straight answer for this, but think about a new airport being built outside JKIA and all service migrating to the new airport. What do we then do with our assets? What do we do with our staff? It's important to basically note that, think about if when Safaricom came and they did not move with the telecom, some of the Telecom Kenya staff, you would be left with a stranded asset that you cannot develop. So you would have to do some serious consideration.
Just on a point of order, I mean, when I see us, allow me in 30 seconds to interject.
Yes, that's it.
Because I'm not going to interject because my colleagues need to ask questions. Are you sure you believe what you're saying? In the sense that if we were to build a new airport, that JKIA will become problematic, yet you are the CS of transport. You can easily give consent to a few airlines to fly into this one and the other ones to fly into the other one. Number two, just nearby in Rwanda, in Ethiopia, they are building, in Rwanda, they are building a new airport 30 kilometers from Kigali. And in Kigali, there's an airport. Honestly, when I see as my friend, do you really believe what you're saying?
Chair,
yes.
Chair, you think about, flip it, and in the documents we are negotiating, they are telling us also that once you concession to us, JKI, don't build a new airport within a radius of 800 kilometers, because the point is really, you are seeking to secure this huge investment, and you don't want, if we don't get return on this investment, we will have to raise the service charge to be able to cover the, because the facility must be fully serviced. And to the extent that we don't get enough revenue, we'll be forced to raise the service charge to be able to pay the loan. Because the loan at the end of the day, it must be bankable. The project must be economically bankable to be able to do that. But Chair, I think it's important, and that's why I use Safaricom. If we allowed another parallel company to build a telecom company at that time and not inherit the old assets that we had and clean them up and support the staff, we can actually be left with our staff complement, because for this it's a win-win. They take over the staff, they upgrade the airport, they build a new runway, and to the extent that, Chair, I think it's important to say this, what we are also negotiating, to the extent that the threshold for bankability is exceeded because we are building a 23,000 capacity airport. Suppose, like I said yesterday to the media, the economy grow and we need the numbers for the airport exceed 23,000. We are negotiating to be allowed to concession a second airport. And that way, make economic sense and make sure the bankability. Because Senator Ledama, through the chair, it's important to know that if they don't get the revenue threshold to make the project bankable, the service charge will have to be increased. Under the current negotiated...
we hear you, Bonasias, because you repeated what you said.
Let me say one final item.
Yes.
All airport charges charged by the airport service shall be approved by the contracting authority. So they will not come and impose their charges. There is a charter on how the contracting authority sets the service charge for our airport, because at the end of the day, Rwanda is built, Ethiopia is built, Tanzania is built. If they set a very high tariff and that makes our airport uncompetitive, it could end up being that we have to pay too much for the small traffic to be able to service their loan. Because at the end of the day, the concessioning, we have to make enough revenue to service this debt. And then so, Chair, it's a question it's an economic question. I don't think it's a numbers question. And we really need to get down to that.
Okay.
Chair,
I think so that we have so many questions here coming. And when you talk Bonasias, I feel like it's a done deal. I'd want you to insist it's a proposal. I'm not trying to help you what to say, but it feels like already we are there. But let's have the Vice Chair. Then after that, we have members of the committee. Then I give the friends later.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Chair, I have 3 questions to the CS. CS, you have said in your submissions that there is no legally binding agreement has been finalized. The heads of terms document has not been signed. That's in his submission. He said it has not been signed. You can read it. Okay, I'm quoting from what he has submitted. That the heads of terms document has not been signed. No legally binding agreement has been finalized. There are no guarantees. I'm quoting your words. The deal has not been signed. CS, then my question will be, if the process is halted at this stage, will you then guarantee Kenyans that there will be no financial losses incurred by the government of the Republic of Kenya and the people of Kenya? That's 1. 2, CS, you have said there are no other companies that have submitted a PIP proposal. Does this mean then that now that it is only Adani, that the whole BOT, build, operate and transfer, was Adani's initiative and not our own idea or plan? And if it was our initiative, I'll still ask the question that Senator Ledama has asked. If it was our initiative, why Adani? Why Adani? Number 3, CS, in trying to know who Adani is. Adani is not credible. There are findings, there will be losses incurred in this process. Therefore, the verdict of Kenyans is no deal. What will be your response to this? Because the finding of Kenyans is that there is no deal. And this is because of what they have got, for the findings they have found about Adani. CS, this is an Indian newspaper. Gautami Adani is a king of fraud. So Kenyans have said they're not going to put their investments, huge investments, in the hands of a fraudster. Thank you.
CS.
Very quickly, Chair, if the deal did not continue, to date, there will be no financial loss to Kenyans. It's very clear that in the engagement, everybody incurs the expenses until, is it until financial close? Until the contract agreement is signed. So there will be no financial loss up to concession contract signing. Why Adani? I did say Senator Paris Tobiko that through the chair, that when you are doing big infrastructure projects, you actually market yourself for investors to come and develop your country. Most county governors are trying to attract investors to say, I'll give you free land if you come and build an hospital, and so on and so forth, because they don't have the money to build that hospital, or they don't have the money to build that infrastructure. And so how do I get my revenue when I build this? So the point is, let me use the Rironimau Summit Road, which we've tried to concession to the French. We are trying to see who can build this road for us, because today, from the traditional 4-5 hours to reach Eldoret, to reach Kisii, today on that road you can spend 10 hours. And we don't have money, or we can't borrow on our headroom, fiscal headroom, to build the road. So who can help us to build this dual highway all the way to Kisumu and Malaba? And so we go out there interesting investors to come and build a toll road on a reasonable return on investment, and we are ready to pay. So, Chair, you interest investors, and Adani invest in airports. You interest investors, why don't you look at Kenya? Why don't you come? We can give you some return. We can give you political support, and so on and so forth. So this is really the PPP Act, to answer together with the third question, that basically is not being employed much. And when people are referring to procurement, they know the traditional Procurement Act of 2015, now 2020, and where it must be competitive, it must be, the rules are the rules on the PPP Act, and that's why I read through the 20-stage process, is a negotiation process. And it is a process which can collapse because the investor can say, why Kenya? There is so much risk, and yet we need a road. If they don't come, we don't have the road, we live without the road. If they don't come, we don't have an airport. It is us who need the airport. So to the extent that Adani, we know Adani invests in airport. Whereas so much has been said about Adani, I've done my homework. Let me say one thing, Chair, about Adani. Adani runs because we have already gone for that due diligence, and some of the bit of positive findings about Adani, which came to my knowledge, is that Adani runs one of the world biggest airport. With in Mumbai, they run a 60,000 capacity airport. 60 million capacity airport, which is the world most efficient on a single runway, beating Gatwick, London. I think it's important to basically say the positive and the negative. And even that press cutting that we have read is already with us. We'll be seeking to make sure those questions are answered to basically be able to satisfy ourselves and support Kenyans. Adani runs Ahmedabad with 11 million capacity. They are building Navi, Mumbai, a 90 million capacity airport.
Point of order, Chair. Chair, what the CS is talking about is within our knowledge, and everybody knows. I don't think there is any reason why he should talk about those things, because everybody here knows about those things. There is no point.
I think it's good for the CS to mention that, because you see, we are also talking about Adani.
Then, Chair, we have got 20 issues that they've done, things they've done.
What the CS could have done is to give this information earlier, yes, and give this information in your background. Let's first of all deal with the questions. Direct answers, so that we come to the issues of what Adani has done, because even as a committee and as a Senate, we have also done our own research. But I suggest, first of all, you go to the questions, then you are going to answer that question maybe at the tail end of what Adani has done. And by the way, there's no proposal, so I don't know, we might not even want to go there. Answer the question.
Finally, the final question. Kenyans have done a due diligence, and I think, Chair, it's unfortunate that we allowed Kenyans to do due diligence because of the information gap. We're very happy to be here to provide this kind of information, to define the process on the PPP, so that the PPP is not being judged against the public procurement process, and the fact that it's a negotiation process. This is helping us. That's why in my statement I said even going to court helps us to provide the information. We should have done this much earlier, and you'll agree with me that some of the disclosures we are making, Kenyans are asking, why did you tell us yesterday? So we take this session very positively as a way of disseminating information, and like Senator Tobiko, the point about providing information is critical. It is important so that people make informed decisions, and we should have done this much earlier. Unfortunately, the PPP process is a negotiation process. So at any stage, like with the union, we are almost seeking to say, can you work with us and be part of the team? Because things are changing every day. So even if we provide information today because we are negotiating, that 16% where we are today on return on equity could be 15% tomorrow. So we can provide information today, and because it's a negotiation process, it is changing every day. So to a very good extent, we should have done this. We need to educate Kenyans about this new procurement methodology that seeks to support the country on big infrastructural projects which the country cannot invest in because of the fiscal headroom. If we were to build an airport today, in the final sentence, with a bottom line of about 5 billion on JKIA balance sheet, albeit the big loans they have taken, we'll build an airport in 60 years.
And on that issue of everybody feels like Adani is a fraudster, have you done due diligence?
I guess that is where the context on why I was explaining the positive side of Adani. We're going to get all the negative side of Adani, and we'll like to get the teams doing this work, including this world-renowned transaction advisor, to answer those hard questions. It cannot be that we see that kind of headline and we just brush it aside. Those questions must be answered.
That one I agree, because if you were to search your colleague, Hassan Joho, the first thing that will come is that I'll never work with Ruto, but now he's working. So I understand when it comes to that. Senator Sifuna.
Thank you, Chair. I request that you hand the witness to me, and I'll be done with him in 5 minutes. CS, I prefer, because we've worked with you at the Energy Committee, I prefer that you give direct answers. I only have 5 minutes. In November of 2023, I was in the Senate when your predecessor, Kipchumba Murkomen, told us that the government was going to initiate a tender process. In fact, he gave the date of January of 2024 for the upgrade and development of a second terminal at JKIA. When did the policy of government change with regards to upgrading of JKIA? CS, with me, we'll talk directly. Just answer me, then I'll go to the next question.
How many questions do you have so that you can manage?
I have only 5 minutes, Chair. All my questions will be answered in 5 minutes.
Okay.
Chair, I've taken quite a bit of time talking to the process of unsolicited, public or privately initiated proposal. It is in the law, it is in PIP.
Yes, my question is,
yes.
Forget what Adani did. I'm talking to government policy now. The stated government policy as at November of 2023 was that there was going to be the initiation of a tender process. In fact, he had said there would be an international expression of interest for the development of a second terminal at JKIA, advertised in January of 2024. When did government policy with regards to the development of a second terminal at JKIA change?
The fiscal headroom, the capacity for government involvement in being a partner in funding the development of the airport. It's one thing when you come to government and you want to do big things until you realize the government balance sheet is overstretched.
CS, you are evading my question, because even if we did a public tender, we would not be using public money. If we did an expression of interest for everybody to know that we are interested in redeveloping or upgrading JKIA, let other people come. That was the position of the government as far as this infrastructure project was concerned. Is it still the stated policy of government, Waziri? is it still the stated government policy that we